Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. So I finally returned to the cinema, and the film I'm reviewing today is Where Did You Go, Bernadette? This was based upon the novel of the same name by Maria Sample and was adapted and directed by Richard Linklater. It stars Cate Blanchett, Billy Crudup, newcomer Emma Nelson, Lawrence Fishburne, Kristen Wiig, and a variety of others. The film really follows Bernadette Fox, a once very successful architect and artist, now lives a quiet life as a recluse with her husband and daughter in Seattle in this dilapidated old house that she hasn't had time or interest to fix up at all. Looks at how she is compelled to reconnect with her creative passions after years of sacrificing herself for her family. Her leap of faith takes her on an epic adventure that jumpstarts her life and leads to her triumphant rediscovery of who she is and what is important to her. I'm a big fan of Richard Linklater. I like the movies he makes. I like that he sort of makes films that are simple and basic to the point, and they have a lot of heart. And they're very human stories. That's what I really feel. No matter if he's doing a small film or a big film, they're always about very grounded and real. And it's telling a very human story. And that's his great ability, I think, is to craft and make an interesting and compelling human story with a lot of heart and some interesting characters. There's a lot in this film that I really enjoyed. It did take a little while to get going, but once it did, I started to really enjoy the film that was unfolding in front of me. I think he's a very talented filmmaker. He isn't for everyone, but I just enjoy everything that he does, no matter what type of film he decides to pursue. And I really like his ability to maneuver within that. And a lot of his films are set in Texas, where he lives, and makes it simpler to make. But this sort of takes place in the places that he's set, in Seattle and in Antarctica, which I really like. I like those elements, and that he's broadening the sort of places he goes and ultimately to make these films. I really like that. What makes this film interesting to me, and I think the best parts of this film, is first the characters and the acting. The acting is fantastic in this film. Cate Blanchett is brilliant and does a really fantastic job. In many ways, she reminds me of the Blue Jasmine character she played in that film. Not as annoying and over the top, but just a bit eccentric in the way she talks and acts. And I really love her performance here. I think she's really one of the great Australian actors who's branched out and done a lot of really great American films, and this is definitely a great performance for her. And Billy Crudup's solid in it. Lawrence Fishburne appears in a small pivotal role. And I'm really impressed with Emma Nelson, this newcomer that she plays Bernadette's daughter, Bea. She's really great in it, and the chemistry she has with Cate Blanchett really convinces you that they're mother and daughter, and I really like that aspect to it. She really believes in her mother and is supportive of her mother, but knows her mother's a bit odd and strange and isn't quite the person, isn't quite quote unquote normal. But that sort of makes her an interesting, unique character. She's sort of stifling under who she is as a person, and she can't really sort of make sense of what's going on. Bernadette's so lost in, can't reconnect with the person she once was and that creative side, and after an event it sort of turned her into a recluse that she didn't feel she could connect with people. She didn't want anything to do with anybody. And she slowly starts to see how that's having a negative effect on her and her family, and how she has to change, how she has to find something in order to reignite who she is. And that's really what's at the essence of the film. Billy Crudup's solid as well. He plays LG, her husband, and he sort of is at the wit's end and he doesn't really know what to do. And his character sort of is trying to get his wife help and believes the only way to help her is to put her in a psychiatric hospital, a sanitarium, to try and help her deal with the issues. But he doesn't realize that that's not what she needs. And it's sort of about how he goes about that. And he has an arc in the film as well, where he learns and grows and realizes what she needs to become better, and it isn't what he thinks. And I kind of like that aspect. There's a really great scene, sort of shows both sides of LG and Bernadette. And it's with different people. With LG's character, he's talking to a psychiatrist because he wants to talk about his wife and get her help, and he thinks that's the best avenue to pursue it. He starts to explain, the issues she's having and what he's seeing with his wife. And then on the other side, we have Bernadette, who runs into an old friend of hers, played by Lawrence Fishburne. And she unloads and talks about all these difficulties she's had and all these things in her mind and going through everything. These two scenes sort of contrast each other, where we get to see this married couple to talk about their issues and talk about what they're struggling with that they can't seem to talk to each other about. They can't seem to connect. And I kind of like that. Lawrence Fishburne's character, sort of, after she's gone through it all, he says to her, so you really need to create. That's what you're put on this earth for, to create. And if you're not creating anything, you're becoming a menace to yourself and menace to society. And it's like, you need to harness that creativity into something. That sort of pushes her in a different direction. That makes her start to realise there's an issue there that she needs to deal with. I just think this is a really good scene of showing this married couple and them trying to work out what's wrong with each other without actually talking to each other. And ultimately what starts the journey is she escapes from the house. I don't know where she went, and she ends up going to Antarctica, which is a trip that her daughter planned with them. She's been trying to get out of it the whole beginning of the film. It isn't until she's faced with these difficulties that she decides to go on this journey herself. And by going to Antarctica, a moment arises where she's able to become creative once again. And that sort of awakens her. And I think this aspect of the film, this is when the film started to pick up for me. And obviously all the way till the end, which is fantastic to watch. And that's the other part of the film that's really great, is the story. It's the simplicity of the story. And the relatability, I think, for many people, not only creative people, but people who began doing something and can no longer do it or struggle to find their way back into it. This sort of sums it up. And I know myself, I've felt like that. And I think that's what this film really talks about. And I like that aspect. And that was a connection I had to the film I didn't expect. It made me emotional towards the end, where she starts to realise what's important to her. And her husband realises what she really needs. And it's sort of like they form a really great and tight connection with the husband and wife and their daughter B, who really tries to bring them together, reconnect. And I think that's a very important aspect of this film that I really liked. And it's just by putting herself out there into something that opportunities arise. If we want something to happen, we can sometimes focus too much on it and sometimes it doesn't happen. But if we put ourselves out there, if we go out and start doing things, then sometimes opportunities arise to take us in the direction we want to go. And I think that's what this film is really talking about. Final thoughts. At the heart, it's about a person trying to find their purpose once again. Trying to reconnect with who they were previous, that inspired them, that caused them to want to create and be creative, and gave their life purpose. I think as we're younger, we have these ideas of the world and these ideas of what we want to do, and we start to pursue them. Then sometimes something can happen, something really difficult can happen and transpire. Things mightn't go the way we expect or want them to. And we can get a bit distracted by that, and we can lose focus of who that person was. I don't believe we can ever become the person we were previous, because we're always evolving and growing. But there's an essence there. There's something there that you can reconnect with that can cause you to evolve into something you want to be and a person you want to be. This film really looks at that. It looks at that idea of what it is to have purpose and what it is to reconnect to the person we once were, and to reevaluate and refocus our attention away from just floating through life aimlessly. And I think this film really encapsulates that. I'm going to give Where'd You Go, Bernadette 4 out of 5. I thought it was a solid and interesting film. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.